to the Lower Shelf. We've had an exciting inaugural season and want to thank you for listening and learning with us. This week, Dr. John Shultz and Jacob Hanson recap our lessons learned and offer a sneak peek of what you can expect in Season 2. Let's dive in.
Hello, my name is John Shultz, and I serve as a pastor at First Baptist Church, Macclenny, Florida. And I want to welcome you to another episode of The Lower Shelf, where complex issues meet common sense answers. Co-hosting with me is Jacob Hanson. Jacob is our next-gen pastor at First Baptist here in Macclenny. You know what? It's hard to believe that we are completing our first season of The Lower Shelf. We've covered a lot of ground since January of this year. Jacob, let me ask you a question. What surprised you most about this first season?
Man, yeah, it is surprising that we are at this point, and man, we've had a lot of fun together. We've talked through a lot of, I hope, helpful topics for our listeners and for our church, and just the ability to see this as kind of an extension of our discipleship ministry here. But man, so what surprised me the most? I think one of the things is, man, I was just deeply encouraged by people's comments that were listening, and not that we do it for approval or anything like that, but man, I was just deeply encouraged. Just some of the listeners and especially families here in our church, they were just deeply helped by some of the things that we were saying. I think another thing that surprised me is honestly just the ability to grow and for me personally to know that things don't have to be super complicated in the Christian life. That the way for us to grow as followers of Jesus can be simple things, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a good way. That it really can be simple for us to grow as followers of Jesus. Those are some of the things I would say from season 1.
That's cool. Yeah, we started the season with several sessions on finances and budgeting and dumping debt. We covered how this really can shape a family in a good and a bad way, when neglected especially. We topped off the conversation in episode 4 by bringing Rick Wheeler from Florida Baptist Financial to come and share with us a way that Florida Baptist Financial just partners with churches and people to be able to help them with a variety of issues dealing with finances, both in the church and then the personal areas of life. So what sticks out to you about these episodes?
Yeah, I had to search the memory banks for those, those first initial episodes. And listeners, by the way, I don't know if I'm like leaking something here, but I think all episodes, maybe except one, we did in one take.
So
So
that's cool.
It is. But man, going deep in the memory here. But man, I remember when we'd talk about finances and talk about budgeting, a couple things stick out there. Number one is when we looked at families and family dynamics and just influence, we saw that children, students, even young kids, they're being taught and discipled already from a young age on how to manage money, on where to invest money, where to spend money. And so families just really have a unique opportunity and really a command in Scripture to model for their kids what it looks like to be good stewards with their money. The other thing I would say is too, just the necessity of being able to lay out your income and your expenses and see where the gaps are, because you have to live within your means. You have to live within your budget. And we saw that there were a number of ways that people could kind of get that sideways or get that out of balance, and just the necessity to even if you've done that before, to revisit that, because there could be a change in your income or there could be a change in your expenses. And so those were a couple of things I remember sticking out from a few of those episodes. What would you say to that?
Well, I agree 100%. I think that way too many of our people of all ages are living without a cash flow plan, a budget. And I remember saying, and I've said this before, especially guys, it's not only guys, we have this mindset that I make money, therefore I think I have money. And it just isn't that way. You know, in our next episodes after this, we kind of shift directions. We were heading into Easter, and we started a series on the state of the family, and we looked at the impact of fatherlessness and how married families really are in the decline, and how this is shaping all of the ministry areas of the church in our society. This is a big one. It's really, really big. not only out in Macclenny and Baker County, but well beyond that. What sticks out to you in this area?
Yeah, we have so many different categories or types of families that we serve here in our church. I remember we talked about grand families. We talked about blended families. We talked about single parent homes. We talked about even the traditional families and the ways that moms and dads influence their children. But yeah, I just remember thinking through, okay, there are a number of different types and categories of families that we have the opportunity to serve alongside with their children, and just ways that we can take a look at Scripture and we can offer them biblical guidance for how they're called to be faithful in their family, in their home. Those are some of the things I remember from there for sure.
Yeah, I meet together with a few guys during the week, and I was talking to someone that's a blended family yesterday, and we were talking about that a little bit. And he said, man, they're in a blended family. And I was talking with them, and he said, it is crazy to me to think about all of the blended families there are just in our church. And we're just a small section of all of the surrounding areas around us, that the reality is that this is a big need to be able to lean into this, to be able to help those families work through the dynamics of bringing yours and mine, and then if you guys have a child together, the hours and how to be able to do this well. And probably nobody does it well on their own. But yeah, it was good learning, and we'll probably lean back into that again in future episodes. But we had a treat as well. We had a dear friend of mine named Bramwell Musia, who lives in Kenya. He serves with Via Missions, and great friend, partner in the work. He shared his story in calling to ministry with us, and it was quite compelling and convicting with all that we have in the country, and still we're hesitant to expand Kingdom Impact because it's not convenient, or it may cause me to experience loss or whatever. What sticks out to you with Bramwell's talk?
Man, I'm going to try to tell this story and not get emotional because it was just so powerful. I remember Bramwell, I can't remember if it was the Wednesday night that he shared with our people, or it might have been on the podcast, or even both. But he said that there was a little boy who would get home from school, who would change out of his school clothes, who would ride his bicycle from house to house, and he would go and he would read the Bible to those people.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, and I can't even ask the barista at Starbucks how their day's going, or I can't even ask them if they go to church anywhere. And we have this boy being used for the glory of God. Man, the what I want to say here is, man, just the embarrassment of riches that we have here. And yeah, it leads us to comfort and to hesitancy. But man, Bramwell just really he challenged me personally, and I hope that he was challenging for our people as well, just to see that man, if we really have a burden for the gospel and for people, we don't have to go to Kenya. We certainly can, but we don't have to. We can go across the street and reach our neighbors because they need to hear about Jesus.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was encouraged as well by so many people that spent time with Bramwell to hear his heart. And he's the real deal, just as a neat guy, and good to hear his story. Yeah, we could not do a Mother's Day episode. It was fun to talk about our mothers and grandmothers. Then we went back as well to examining parenting and how the devices of social media are shaping our culture. We titled that episode Parenting an Anxious Generation. And, that next episode right after that, we had Matthew Take to share with us about building a framework for supporting children through a process called FLIP in episode 9. Those were 3 to 4 different episodes together, but man, I'm telling you, those could have been influential episodes, and there's a lot of ground. But what are some of the highlights you thought of these episodes?
Sure, yeah. As I think back to Mother's Day, and I think back to kind of that Mother's Day special that we did together, I remember you sharing stories about your mom, me sharing stories about my mom, and I think just the influence, whether it's active influence or it's even a passive influence that mothers have on their children, on their family, it's just huge, and it's there. Moms out there, whether you know it or not, you are having an impact and influence on your kids, on your family, even on the children that you serve here at the church in whatever capacity you serve. You are influencing them for the glory of God. And so I remember that from the Mother's Day episode. I also remember from Flip It. I remember talking with Matthew a little bit about how all of the processes in Flip It, all of the recommendations in Flip It, it's not just as a church we see that, and we don't say we're just giving commands or behaviors for people to follow into, but we understand that we live an embodied experience. We are people, but we also are souls. We're we realize that, hey, we as a church have a really cool opportunity to connect those behaviors to the gospel, and how a change of heart leads to a change of action, and but also unique ways for our church to be able to partner with the school system, because this Flip It program is something being used here in Baker County schools. And so just kind of the carryover between home, school, and then kind of that third place, which I would say is church, and the ability for us to kind of have those three places all connected together, speaking the same language. I thought that was a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, I think he was a good person to bring in for just an overview of that. I still want to, in the fall, I think it would be so beneficial for the people that are here, that have children that are in that area, people that work with the children at the church, but for our community at large to be able to host a training event, and they're open to it. I know that Alice and Henry Smitches, Henry is the kind of the program director for Flip It in this particular area, and I know that working with him, that'll be something that they'd be excited about offering to the people, because it's a win-win. If we can have people in the community that are educated about the process, they would partner with the educators in knowing that there wouldn't be a different process that the kids are learning at home as compared to what they're learning at school to redirect behavior and really enforce particular things. So, yeah, it was cool. I was excited as well. Bob Bumgarner has been a friend of mine for many years. I first met him when he served at a church called Celebration, which eventually changed their name to Faithbridge, and I heard about him when he was at Arlington Baptist Church. Before then, I'm trying to think, did Bob go? He may have left. That's what it was. He did not go to Celebration, or if he did, it was just for a little bit. He actually left Arlington and went to work at the convention, and that's where I really built a beginning friendship with him and Rick Wheeler, was him serving in the leadership department of the Florida Baptist Convention. But we brought him here, associational missional strategist for the First Coast Churches in episode 10, to share his heart with us about their tagline of never pastor alone, and how First Coast Churches partners with over 200 churches in the greater Jacksonville area, and not just in the city of Jacksonville, but rural churches all the way out to Macclenny. We're at the far western edge of that. We're at that border. But what do you remember about that time with Bob here?
Man, yeah. Anytime I'm around Bob, I'm encouraged. I just am, and he's just been encouraging to me. That's one of the things I would say to our listeners is they may not realize that that pastoring and being a ministry, sometimes you could feel lonely, sometimes you could feel alone. By God's grace, we have so many kind people in our church who reach out to us and pray for us, but that's not the case for all pastors in all places. And so Bob's heart and the heart behind First Coast Churches, not pastoring alone, man, it encourages my heart each week that I've got pastor friends of mine here in Jacksonville and in the surrounding areas that reach out to me and they say, hey man, praying for you, how's ministry going? And the way that I got connected with them was through First Coast Churches, was through those events and through those times that we have together. That was one of the things. I think another thing that would have been helpful for a lot of our listeners would have been to understand the relationship between who is First Coast Churches, who is the Florida Baptist Convention, who is the Southern Baptist Convention, how do those things work together, knowing that the Southern Baptist Convention isn't like this top-down denomination that tells us who's going to be our pastor. It doesn't tell us what we have to do as a local church, how we still maintain our own self-governing, and the fancy term for that is autonomy, our ability to rule ourselves. But I think that was a helpful note that Bob had when we had him here for that time.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the ability as well maybe to bring out Patrick Coates. Patrick is our catalyst for the region that we're in. Again, far western region for us. I don't know if you know this or not. You probably do, Jacob, but Florida Baptist Convention was able to help us financially to partner with a lot of the school supplies that we're putting together to be able to give out to folks on the children on the 25th of July. And what a cool thing it is to know how those partnerships all work together. The Florida Baptist Convention, the First Coast Churches, Southern Baptist Convention. I thought that was I really want to bring Patrick out. I'd like to bring Dr. Rummage out as well and to hear from him, hear his vision and heart. I know that Willie Rice, being a Florida guy, is the new president of the SBC. I don't know if we could have it or not, but that'd be fun to bring him here. I know he'd probably come if he was asked.
He sure would.
So I think that'd be a lot of fun. But the last episode we did was an area that I am just absolutely in love with, and it's the area or the process of partnering together with other guys, in my case, to pour into them and help them develop a heart, not only to grow, but a desire to pour into others. I feel that this is an area where many churches, and we're one, that really don't rise to the potential that's there. We rely on a lot of programs and classes, 5, 9, 12, 13, whatever week classes, and maybe we can feel like we're checking the box in this area and we're making disciples. And, we may increase the learning that people have, but we're not seeing the multiplying of disciple makers, people who are at a place in their life that they're not only growing, but they gain a burden to be able to share their life with someone else who may be a brand new believer or someone who's never been personally discipled. But this is an area I know that we really need to grow on, not only for this year, but in the years ahead. What'd you grab from this episode?
Man, yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful for you and for your heart and your vision for that. I know earlier in this year we were able to do some disciple making training, and I know your heart is there. And it was an encouraging episode. It was a challenging episode for us to think through. Okay, not only am I following Jesus, but am I helping somebody else follow Jesus, or am I helping others follow Jesus? Maybe there are couples who could say, am I helping another couple follow Jesus? And man, really, I think one of the things I took away from the episode, I remember you and I kind of being able to talk through this back and forth, was we don't have to overcomplicate this. We don't have to overcomplicate disciple making.
Yeah.
It's inviting someone else or two or three people into your life, and it's keeping God's word at the center, and it's challenging and helping each other follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I just remember, again, kind of like I said at the beginning of the episode, it's simple. It's simple to be able to do that, and we just have to do it. That's what I would take away from our time.
Yeah, I think we got to transition from knowing what to do to doing what we know, and that's got to be it in this area of disciple making. We read a lot of books on making disciples. We talk the talk, but in reality, are we really multiplying people out who know how to multiply others? And I shared in that episode, and I'll just share again. I think one of the fearful things in ministry leaders is they themselves have never been discipled like that. So it's brand new territory for them, and they're hopeful that they can just preach their way through this disciple-making process. When Jesus brought those guys along with him, he called them to be with him. And I believe that they spent time in the Word with the living Word together, but I think they just hung out. I think they sat by the shores in Galilee and they talked. I think they spent time together. I think Jesus helped them with getting things set up from place to place, and they spent time together in life. And I'm seeing that in a lot of guys. I met with a guy today it's cool to watch what's happening in his life. Same thing's true with another guy that was with yesterday. And here's another cool thing. So there's a couple that really praying for in a lot, and they're really truly struggling with a number of different areas. And I was blown out of the water when I got a text from him at 6:30 in the morning a couple days ago. It was either yesterday or a day before. He said, I just want you to know I'm praying for you. Man, that just is cool to watch that. It gives you the area of that God is at work, even though we don't see his activity. He's at work all around us. And I'll use a Blackabyism, which I am told never can we do experiencing God here, because every time I do it, we end up moving. So Pam has forbid me for us to ever do experiencing God. Anyway, it's cool to watch that. And that happens not only because they're there in worship and learning how to worship and worshiping, and then they're in a group, but they're also learning to build the technique and the processes for self-nurture. And that's pretty cool. I want to share something with you all, and this is, we're going to take a break. This is the last session, the last episode for season 1. We're going to begin back in the middle of August for season 2. And we're going to try and touch topics that we believe will help people grow closer to Christ, lean into families, parenting, touch on issues of the day, and help you learn how you can multiply out your life locally and globally. Jacob, what would you have to say before I bring us to a close on this episode?
Man, just again, thankful just to be able to do this. I pray that it's been helpful to our people. I know it's been helpful to me and challenging, and just looking forward to season 2.
Cool. Hey, I want to thank you all for joining us on season 1. You can go back to wherever you download podcasts, Spotify, wherever, and you can look at those previous episodes that we talked about and learn from those. You can listen to them as many times as you want. But I want to thank you for joining us as we close out season 1 of The Lower Shelf. I hope you have a great day.
We hope today's episode has encouraged you in your walk with Christ. The Lower Shelf is a ministry of First Baptist Church of Macclenny. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To learn more about First Baptist Church of Macclenny, visit fbcmac.com, and you can also follow our ministry on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for spending time with us on The Lower Shelf.